Hello, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Embedded Analytics with Google Looker, a deep dive. With that being said, this event is being hosted by Wursta in partnership with Google and Bytecode. Our mission is to help organizations maximize their use of the cloud. We work side by side to help our clients make a good technology decisions and grow their businesses in ways that they wouldn't have the ability to do so otherwise. This helps organizations develop a culture of continuous innovation powered by real-time collaboration. Before we get started, I did want to introduce our partners and our guest speakers today. First, we'll be hearing from Tristan, Mark, and Matthew from the Google Cloud Looker team. They're going to be giving us an introduction to Looker, its value props, and architecture to frame today's conversation. Then we're going to be hearing from John Marshall, VP of Services at Bytecode.io, our partner for advanced data analytics. They have helped over 1,000 customers successfully deploy Looker and specialize in embedded analytics. John will be providing a demo of Looker, including how to embed Looker and leverage the API to build integrated experiences. This session will be relevant to those of you who have already used Looker or are new to Looker altogether. We are going to highlight the Looker journey on how to get started, how to begin and to embed your data visualizations into different applications, and how to monetize your data and beyond. So with that being said, I will be handing it off to the Google team for a deep dive into a little deeper dive into today's topic for today.
Thanks, Andrew. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for attending. Really excited to be presenting on embedded analytics today to you guys. I think we've got a great webinar prepared. Before we turn the keys over to Bytecode to jump into the Looker demo, just wanted to set the stage here with some slides. This first slide is actually just contextualizing BI over the past, 4 or 5 decades. If some of you are not, familiar, BI really began in earnest in the 80s with tools like MicroStrategy and Cognos and SAP Business Objects. And at this point in time, databases were really, expensive, and querying was expensive. And so as a result, the data pretty much resided where it was, which meant that it was tough to get at, really was only able to be accessed by IT teams. But the data, was always trustworthy, right? Because you weren't having a lot of people removing subsets of the data, pulling them into workbooks, defining things on their own. The issue here was that people were not able to be agile with data. So that's when we sort of saw these Wave 2 tools like Tableau and Power BI come to prominence in the early 2000s, wherein these tools empowered analysts at a departmental level to go grab a subset of data from their data warehouse or database and pull it into a workbook, where they would have that sitting in an in-memory server, which was great because analysts could very quickly build a visualization or answer a net new question on their own. It just so happens that at scale, there's no true org-wide governance when you have everyone in their own workbooks, very quickly building their own visualizations. And so what Looker sought to do back in 2012 was really to marry the governance that we see in Wave 1 BI tools with the agility that we see in Wave 2 BI tools. And I think as you've seen in the past 5 years, there's a lot of tools like Tableau, like Power BI, that are now reverse engineering their architecture to try to sort of draft in Looker's wake. And so we really see ourselves as being on the cusp of this new frontier of BI. With that, I'll pass it over to my colleague Tristan to talk about the 2 main problems that companies are experiencing prior to engaging with Looker.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks everyone for joining us. I'll just jump right in. Andrew, if you don't mind, you could just go ahead and build out the whole slide here. Yeah, thanks a lot. So the main problems that we're solving with Looker that we want to bring to your attention are a data bottleneck problem and a data chaos problem. Now, a data bottleneck is simply when questions are not answered at the speed that the business requires them to be answered. And this results from processes being too manual. It might be from not having enough technical staff who are proficient in SQL. And the next problem that we solve for comprehensively is data chaos. And this is when you might have another BI tool, but there might be a lack of governance. And as a result, it's hard to maintain data quality, especially across different departments. when each one might be defining metrics and measures slightly differently. So we have these two problems that we think culminate the wide variety of use cases we see both for Looker internal and Looker external and embedded analytics. And that's kind of what we'd love to kind of get into and show you today. You can go to the next slide, Andrew. And the three main pillars of how we do that are we feature what we call an in-database architecture. So this leverages your existing database to provide real-time insights down to a granular row level. All of your data is in one place instead of being in data silos and disparate sources. The next thing we do is we leverage a tool called LookML, which is our own abstraction of SQL. And it's very easy to learn. That's essentially the semantic layer where you describe your data schema to Looker, things like the relationship of your tables, the measures, dimensions, and the joins. You define these all one time in one place for a unified metrics and a single source of truth. And this creates org-wide governance and self-service and allows you to deliver real-time data to wherever your users are. And then lastly, we're an API-based, browser-based tool. So each report has a custom URL that changes as you query things, which makes it easy to share with your teams for a lot of collaboration. Things are API native, so you can bring in third-party apps and create custom applications. And lastly, we're definitely like cloud agnostic and tech agnostic, so you can plug and play with any stack across any cloud provider and a variety of different tools as well. So we can go to the next slide, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew. Jumping back in here, and just so you guys know, this is our penultimate slide here. So 2 more slides, and then we'll be hopping into the demo, which I know everyone's super excited to see. This is just really a different way to visualize Looker's architecture. So as Tristan mentioned, we are cloud agnostic, but I think it's easiest to work your way from the bottom to the top here. You'll notice that Looker does require a SQL compliant database to sit on top of. Down here are just examples of data sources. By no means are these the only data sources that you can be querying with Looker. Merely just examples of popular data sources that people are landing in their data warehouse. Moving up, there's one point of connection to Looker and your database JDBC connection, which is great for security purposes. And then within that Looker layer is really where you're defining unified metrics for the organization, which is going to really enable people who don't know SQL, business users, to ask net new questions when they're doing self-service data exploration. This is where you're setting up permissioning for the org. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that Looker is version controlled, so we can integrate with any Git provider you guys might be using. Makes us very friendly to developer teams in addition to security teams. What we're going to be hopping into in a moment is our traditional demo experience. It may resemble other BI tools that you've seen in the past. The real difference is going to be, the way in which a business user can ask that next question or even take, action on the data directly from the tool itself. So we really see Looker as more of a command center and less of a BI tool. Of course, we'll show you, some great features like, dynamic alerting and scheduled reporting and, all the, great front-end actions that you can take from Looker itself. But today, we're really focused on embedded analytics and, the ability to monetize and productize data. And so that is what we're going to be focusing in on, the demo experience today. We're going to be getting started, as I said, with a traditional demo environment. But, just to reiterate, everything that is possible in there is also possible within an embedded use case. And then we're going to be showing you some great examples. Next slide, Andrew. Great. So last slide here, this is just to, give you guys a understanding of how our different customers are approaching embedded analytics. For companies that do have a SaaS application or a web application where companies or customers are logging in with a customer portal, often they're going to embed, Looker reports directly within that application. For quick time to value, we see customers just dropping in iframes, and oftentimes that is sufficient for their purposes. For companies that don't actually have a web application or a customer portal, we have this OEM route where you can spin up a standalone Looker instance for your partners or your end users to be accessing and interacting with live reports. And then we also have a really robust SDK, software development kit, and API. that allows customers to really go beyond dashboards and build, custom data experiences that don't at all resemble, a BI tool. And so we're really excited to show you towards the end of today's session an example that we actually built out for the Golden State Warriors that our colleague Matthew will be leading. So with that, I will kick it back to the bytecode team to hop into the webinar or the demo itself.
Awesome, thanks, Mark. Yeah, from jumping into demo environment, and as Mark said, we're going to kind of start with the front end experience or general dashboarding capability. Show some of the interactivity and the openness of the platform to be able to push data anywhere. Scheduling, alerting, and some of those functions that take you from, hey, I've got to log in to look at something, but to actually setting up rules that allow me to action it. And then I'll show you behind the scenes kind of the look-and-melo, that semantic layer that powers the full front end. And then we'll flip over and we'll look at a variety of ways that you can embed from a capability perspective. If you have questions along the way, please post them, stop and ask. Happy to address them as we run through. So this is Looker. When you log in, there's kind of three major sections of the platform. You can think of it from the development portion of things. That's where the look-and-melo layer is. The foldering or content management. This is how you control access to dashboards, all the way from all up to individual granular levels. And then you have administration for all of the setup side. So once you're in a dashboard here, we have contextual filters, that kind of give you relative timeframes or pick lists, being able to select down. These are all customized by the data type and how you want to set up the filtering experience in Looker, all the way to just being able to select a single value. KPIs, line charts, all the things that you would expect. I would say a big part of bytecode design and Looker as a platform is to provide not just a bunch of vanity metrics or numbers, but the context that is important. So 45,292 orders, like, is that good or bad? Well, that's up 162% from the prior year. You get comparisons, whether that is a percentage indicator or a percent of target, like the 80% of the 7,868 goal. The idea here is that you can have the context to be able to understand if it's good or bad and what's next step you should take. And all of those come out of the box from a visualization setup perspective. Mapping capabilities are also supported. Any lat long or zip code natively plot. You don't need to do any transformation. You just specify the types, and this stuff just kind of works. The other big part here is, as we get down into the brand performance here, is the idea of Looker as an open platform. So in addition to being able to say, like, here's the visualization and the data that we have in order to make an insight, maybe I need to do something with that. So actions are supported both native as well as custom. Basically, you can push a set of data as JSON to any webhook and have that then use a service to then create tickets or create new sales opportunities, or in this case, start an email brand promotion or start an AdWords campaign based off of the cohort that I'm seeing. We can also smartly link to dashboards. So this is our drill across or drill in type of capability. So going over to the next dashboard, you'll see that Calvin Klein, which is the brand that I was looking at, is automatically passed into the dashboard filters here. So you can pass context both from the top level, like you can pass all the filters to the next dashboard, or specifically from data within an exact field. And that can be the object that you're clicking on or anything that's returned in the result set. Just think of this as being able to construct URLs. So we have our dashboard here that's looking at Calvin Klein, our top level metrics in the category here. Native to Looker, and this also is included in the embed experience, is the ability to set alerts. So think of this as like rules. So I want to know when my average sale price goes over $62. Go ahead and send me an email and check it every day, every hour, every minute, at a certain time of day. We can also say publish that out to email or publish that to Slack. I think the key part here is really taking it from, I need to log into the dashboard every day in the morning to go look at something and understand when it happened, to, hey, just proactively tell me when I meet a certain threshold or I exceed a certain thing. In this case, it's notifying you, via message But you can also build workflow on this with that data action side of where instead of it being an email that I have to go do something, maybe it just automatically creates a ticket in my ticketing system as an example. Also on the dashboard level, we have scheduling. So this says, hey, go ahead and send the brand performance dashboard as an email to John as a PDF or as inline visualizations. Pretty standard for a BI perspective. But I think another thing to think about is that the filters that you set up are specific to the schedule. So I've worked with a lot of customers that, they'll have created 50 versions of a dashboard, one for each brand that they manage. And then when they want to add a widget or a new visualization, they have to go in and they have to add it to all 50 of them. This is a different paradigm. It says, all right, set up your dashboard once, and then set the schedule or the filter to each specific brand. Now it will kick out that dashboard just for Calvin Klein or just for CTR Specialties, Kalita, et cetera. You can set all these up, maintain one version of the dashboard, but then deliver that data to your end customer, either internally or externally, filtered down so they only have access to it. That paradigm of we create a dashboard and then we deliver it in the context of the data that I should see extends out into the embed side of the world. And the embed is, instead of it being set as a filter, and I'll get into the technical details of it, but it's actually like John will be set up as Calvin Klein. And so when John logs in and looks at the dashboard, underneath the hood or in the actual query itself, it's always filtered to just Calvin Klein. So it's opaque to the end user. But once again, you're just building one dashboard, and then all of your customers are able to access it with row-level security enforced. So a couple different ways to accomplish that. The Explorer, this is where it really differentiates and gets powerful. So Courtney, great question. Can you move the visualizations around? Yes. So you can control whether people have the ability to do this. It's the ability to edit. But once you open the edit side of here, you can see it's just a big snap grid. So you can move the tiles around, you can make them bigger and smaller. We can add in text tiles like we have here. All of that is fully controlled by anybody who has the ability to edit a dashboard. This is also where you set the filters. So pretty easy to customize. So the next piece is like, hey, the dashboard, your top level, I like to think of it as your top level dashboard answers 60% of the questions you have. How's my business doing? What are my sales breakdowns by a variety of categories? The next 20% is probably covered in a drill across. Like, okay, now I want to look at a specific brand. But then you have the long tail of like, well, what happened? And what happened? Why did it happen? It could be anything. And that's really where we get into the Explorer, the self-service. So instead of having to go out and build 100 dashboards that answer 1,000 questions, we really just try to answer the top level ones for the business and then enable the end users to come in and ask lots of other questions. So here, Chris Ball asked, you were presenting the context, the way to compare, bring more value to the data you're presenting. Where do you set the context? So the context can be set at the top level of a dashboard. Let's say you're logging in and you want to set a default filter. That'd be one way. Everyone sees the same thing. You could also make that variable based off of the user. So when I log in, it defaults to Calvin Klein because that's what I care about. But for Tristan, it's Levi's. So you can think of this like on a per user basis, being able to inherit context from that user, all the way to enforcing row level security where I log into the dashboard, I don't see it in the filter, but I only see Calvin Klein's data. Tristan logs in, same dashboard, he only sees Levi's data. So it's part of the setup of a user and then enforced in the database itself. Amit has a question on if you click on any dimension. Yes, there is cross-filtering available at a dashboard level, and it is a dashboard feature. There is a constraint that it all has to be kind of from the same Explore, which is what we're looking at here, where you've defined how the tables all relate to one another. As long as all those visualizations are sourced from the same Explore, the cross-filtering will work, and that's because underneath the hood, everything that Looker is doing is a SQL query, which I'm going to show here in a minute. So on the Explore side here, where you can answer questions, this is a curated view into the data. So we can ask questions about order items, about inventory items, repeat purchasers, users, etc. It's as simple as clicking the area that you want to go into, and then maybe adding average sales price and running that. You will notice that when I added that column in, it allowed me to then run the query, or it asked me to run the query. So as you're setting up your table of data, it doesn't automatically just generate queries as you're doing that. So as I think Mark was talking about, and Tristan, the architecture pattern here is there's Looker, has all of your logic, it creates SQL queries, and then those run against your data warehouse. That means that you're always running against live data. So as data becomes available in the data warehouse, it's available to the end user in Looker. But two, there's also some controls around here of you don't want to hammer the database more than you need to. So this pattern of you build your table, then click run, is actually then running that query against data warehouse. So we have our category here and our sales price. Visualizations, I'll just click through. We've got full configurability for every visualization in the edit side, from how things are plotted to renaming things, recoloring things from a series perspective, choosing if you want to see value labels or not, control over the XY axis and the X and Y axis. All of these are specific to the visualization. So as you click through, you'll see that you get different options for those, but a lot of power built in there for end users. The Explore, the whole idea here is basically, that a user can come in and ask another question. Here's the total sales price, but what's my average sales price? And if you allow your end users to see it, they can also just see the straight SQL. So Looker semantic layer is defining the business logic, how tables relate to each other. What is the total sales price versus the average sales price? But then Looker is generating a SQL query, which it transparently prints every time. So there's no black box here, like a lot of other BI tools, particularly if you have analysts who are comfortable in SQL. This is a really powerful feature, which is I can always tell from my raw table up to the visualization exactly what is happening. So we print the SQL statement, you can run through it, you can look exactly how the total sales price is calculated, the average, and what tables it comes from. It is smart in the sense that it only brings in the tables that you need. So I've selected things from these tables, so they're all going to be in there. But if we removed the user filters as an example, you would see that the users table drops out. I've got an extra one in there somewhere. But it only brings in the tables that you actually need. From here, you can create visualizations, and then you can save them back to dashboards, or you could save this as its own report. How this query gets generated. So this is through LookML. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this measure total sales price, which is going to take me into the developer side of Looker. This is where everything gets set up. You can see that we've got a couple objects defined here. One is a dimension. That's just all the columns in your table and or things that you build. Measures are just the aggregation. So you can see our total sales price is just the sum of the sales price column. And our average is just the average on our sales price column. This is the most straightforward. It's an order items table in my database. Here's all the columns that are in there. And I've created some pretty basic aggregations for sums and averages. When you think about Looker, it's not just, here's a representation of a table. You also have the ability to create CTEs or derive tables. So a common example that comes up in analytics is hey, I need to know, who are my repeat customers and how often do they repeat? So you can actually just write your own SQL that is doing, a rank partition over my user ID by the created time as the first purchase or number, so I can get my list of orders for them. And what was the prior order date, which I can use then to calculate something new, like the days between orders, which is just doing a diff between, that first order date and the prior order date. Or, hey, is the repeat purchase within 30 days? I'm evaluating the days between orders. So there's a lot of flexibility and power built in here to do the stuff that you traditionally had to go back to your data engineering team for. In that kind of like wave 2 world, you would go to the data team and be like, build me a repeat purchases table. Well, now you can do that as an analyst straight in Looker. You might want to take that and put it back into your data pipeline at time, but at minimum, like, this is a great prototyping capability for your analysts. I can create these roll-up or derived tables. I can get it exactly how I need it. Oh, this is used in a lot of different places. Great. And I can just hand the SQL to my data engineering team. Be like, hey, go build this table. Or I can have Looker do that for me. The last side is explores. Just going to go in the order items explore. This is the from clause. So if these views have all the business logic in there, this is saying how all those tables relate together. So it's just saying, here's my order items table, and it joins to my orders table on the order ID. This access filter is actually how we're going to do some of the row level security. And it's just saying, hey, if I'm a user, go ahead and take my state access filter and do a where clause where the users.state equals that state. So I could set California for John, and then I would only be able to see California data. It's only a couple lines of code, but it enforces row level security with the where clause. Simple, but extremely powerful. So as you're thinking about Looker, before we jump into the embed side, you've got your content management, administration, everything you would kind of expect for managing users and what they can access. We have our dashboards with the ability to drill across within context, set alerts, set schedules, push data anywhere, kind of the idea of like, let's make this actionable. You have the explore experience, which is where you jump off into to ask all of those next level questions that users have without having to overkill analysis by dashboard. And then it's all governed by this semantic layer here, this LookML that defines, what are all the metrics, what is the logic between tables, and being able to create your own tables as well to roll up to do things like repeat purchases, and always with the ability that everyone who's clicking revenue is using the right join, is using the right definition on the right column, all managed by the team. The LookML side is all Git backed as well, so you get development workflow in the sense of that you can have pull requests so that others have to review your code before you merge it. You can also do development without impacting any users on the platform. So when I go into development mode, I'm actually on my own branch. I make changes, I test that, and then not until I'm ready to merge or promote that to production does it then actually go out to everyone. So a lot of really powerful development tools and best practices built in for managing analytics at scale. Going out to embedding. So there's a couple ways to think about Looker from an embedding perspective. There's an iframe, which is any visualization or a dashboard. In a couple days, a web developer on the team can understand what Looker needs to do and get something working in your application. But it's much more than that in the sense of you can build interactivity between your iframe and what the application is doing. So in this example here, there are no filters in Looker that have nice photos of swim trunks and suit coats and stuff like that. But the data itself of what these percentages is still coming from the semantic layer. So the app is actually making a call to Looker's API and saying, hey, return me basically the category sales percent. So I get all the categories and their percentages returned as JSON, and then I'm rendering that in the application. So whether that's coming from a dashboard or it's coming from this experience, the number is always going to be right. But I'm building an experience that allows the user to have context. So, I know that I'm looking at things based off of these clothing categories. It's much easier to interpret, this guy in a green jacket is active. I'm clicking on that, and then this is a simple JavaScript event to the iframe to say, update the filter to where category equals active. And then you have full control over the top level of like the actual display. So you can use visualization components, which are React components that are made available to all developers, kind of like bootstraps you on the guts of how you hook things up, to be able to just call the API, get JSON, and represent that however you want. A lot of customers will take a progression here. So starting with, hey, we built a dashboard, I sent it as a PDF, people love it. Like, wouldn't it be great if instead of getting it as a PDF, they could log in to our application, get the dashboard, and adjust some of the filters as an experience. So they'll embed a dashboard. And then they're like, hey, customers love this, but they, our data is specific to a product and a problem. Let's represent the data in a way that's really intuitive. And so they'll customize the filters first, as an example here. And then, hey, this is amazing. We want to present data throughout our application, not just as a dashboard. Well, then that's where Viz components come in. You're actually like inserting data, all powered by Looker, the governed semantic layer, so the number is always right, but full control over the UI. So kind of think about that as like a spectrum of options that you have available. And from there, you can get pretty sophisticated in terms of, we can show and hide titles dynamically. We could change colors. This is just showing you some of the JavaScript event control you have, which means that queries don't have to be rerun. Iframes don't have to be re-rendered. You're just able to have this connectivity or this interactivity via native JavaScript events, which have a really nice experience like this, where it's very fast and responsive. You'll see that saved reports and query builder are grayed out, and there's a little ticket here. It's because I'm on a basic account. So if I switch to a premium account, this is how you can actually gate and access control what people can do. So customers will make dashboards available for free, but this ability to, create and save reports as a user, maybe you put that behind a buy wall and actually have them, it's an advanced capability that they could buy and then use to do their own analysis. This is that embedded Explore experience. So dashboards and explores are available all through the embedded experience. To query builder being a completely custom front end, but I'm just allowing the user to collect a couple things, and then this is actually an API capability where you can run query and then render result. And so this is rendered results as a table, which allows you to paginate, which is not something that Looker out of the box does. So you've got a lot of extendability of the platform to accomplish different use cases, all while using the underlying LookML to generate query, access filters from user management, and row level security, caching, and all of those pieces that take a lot of effort to build while giving you the flexibility to meet your customers where they are. Cool. That's everything we planned to demo. Any questions or things that people wanted to see that maybe we didn't touch on? Waleed has a question on, since it's reading data live from an application database, typically you'll split this workload off. So either Looker running against a read replica, so that you are not running queries against your database, that you're also running your application queries, or you're replicating your application data plus other sources into a data warehouse like Snowflake, Redshift, or BigQuery. And then your workload would be completely independent. Not best practice to run your analytics workload on Looker on your application database. I like to split that off as a read replica or a data warehouse. Cool. With that, I'll hand it back to the Google team, who's going to kind of show you the art of the possible of what you can do with Looker as a platform perspective, which goes beyond embedding dashboards and explorers and really delivering a curated custom experience.
Awesome. Yeah, everybody. My name is Matthew. I work as a sales engineer on the Looker team. And exactly as John had mentioned, we like to say the art of the possible in regards to, again, the potential behind what you can fully do with Looker. I mean, very easy out of the box, quick to use. You can get up and running fast. But depending on how much time and effort you want to put into the tool, how complex you want to get, there's functionality there that can really build a very custom, user-centric sort of experience where you can really do anything that you want. And I'll be really just kind of diving into an embedded experience, very similar to what John had showed, but just with a little turbocharge on the back end. So I'll go ahead and share my screen in a moment. Some of this functionality that I'm going to talk about is going to take into consideration some other tools within the Google suite, some like AI, machine learning, those sorts of things. But all the data points that we're going to be seeing are going to be powered by Looker. We say powered by Looker a lot, and all that means is if there's a data point there, it's being streamed from some sort of data source, whether it's via API or your data warehouse, etc., being processed by Looker, as in we're running some SQL query against those sort of data points, and then being pulled into this front end sort of visualization tool. So I'll go ahead and share my screen, and we can go ahead and hop in. I'm not sure, sports fans, whoever we have here, we have a partnership with the Warriors, so this is going to be based on the Warriors. So anyone who's a Knicks fan or wherever everyone is based, unfortunately, it's going to be specific to Warriors, but it's going to be really based upon the Warriors team, Chase Center as a company wanting to do sort of analytics as a whole on how the team is doing, how concessions are doing, those sorts of things, business data points that are pretty relevant, as well as we have some cool machine learning models running on the players themselves so we can analyze games in a real time. And you can see at the top, it's actually running off a, in quotes, live game. In reality, it's just on a repeat of a game that's already going. So hopefully we'll be able to catch some of that. So I'll go ahead and launch into this demo. This is going to look, again, a little different from what John had showed. This is more so leveraging, as he had mentioned, you'll kind of build upon your platform, potentially plop a dashboard into an iframe, then maybe use some of those visualization components to get a little bit more custom. Well, this is what we're looking at here is leveraging the Looker API to pull data points into custom JavaScript visualizations built out on this front end, right? Something that I like to note here, that's nice because someone had asked a question regarding performance, those sorts of things. A lot of this information is actually going to be streaming data. People always ask, how fresh can the actual data be? Well, it can be as real time as the data in the data warehouse. So if you have data that's streaming, then that's something that can be visualized, right? So here we have a sort of a courtside view, right? This is for someone in charge of managing the court or the the concessions or tickets, et cetera. They can have this sort of view, click into specific fans, right? We can see people spending. Again, every single data point that we're looking at is being built off a metric derived in LookML. Looker is running that SQL query and then returning these results, right? If we want to see the most important fans, someone like myself, obviously you can tell that this is a demo and not real because I'm not sitting courtside at a Warriors game, but you can have this sort of information pop up, and then you can derive, sort of deeper insights depending on what you're looking at. On the left-hand side here, we have some information regarding, the in-stadium revenue, what is being pulled from. Again, this is being streamed in real time, depending on how the data is being pulled. This also could just be static data based on yesterday's sort of, revenue, et cetera. Here's some interactivity with the interface as well. We have some information regarding broadcast and ticket revenue. Maybe we want to see information regarding ticket cost over time, right? Pretty easy metric to calculate, but to be able to, and great question, Courtney. I'll take a look in the in a moment. But in regards to time frame, again, this is art of the possible in quotes. This is just an example of what actually could be done if you put resources behind building out a tool like this. Now, we'll show you some actual, just because I like to show from very complex to very easy. I'll show you an example of how you can integrate just a classic Looker dashboard in a very nice way into like an embedded experience. But the one thing that everyone likes to see is, let's go ahead and watch the game live, right? We're just catching the end, unfortunately. But what's nice is integrated, and I'll actually refresh it so we can kind of see some nice gameplay, but integrated in this tool with Looker is Vertex AI, which is Google's AI sort of machine learning tool, which will do some and also some a machine learning model that we have based on different players to do analysis live on any sort of footage, right? So this is separate from Looker, but just to kind of show you how, you know, cool sorts of things can be integrated into your embedded experience, we kind of have this nice little demo. Now, even though this is not being pulled directly from Looker, all these sort of data points that we're seeing here, live advertising analysis, right, Twitter sentiment analysis, those sorts of things, those are being pulled into Looker into these, again, custom visualizations on the front end. Again, all via JavaScript with the Looker API being the tool that's pulling in that data. Now, this is very nice, of course, love the Aaron Fox, but maybe I'm more interested in some more classic Looker dashboards in our embedded application. This is going to be very, you know, much more similar to what John was showing earlier. But here we have, again, more of a custom front end where I'm interested in this season overview, right? This is going to be your custom Looker iframe. These are all, even these charts, we can embed, you know, HTML and images in our charts. These are all just classic sort of Looker dashboards. We can filter this information down by team. This is a season overview. Well, maybe I'm interested in season overview as well as a specific player. Let's go ahead and pull in a player overview dashboard at the same time. So I can have these pulled in side by side. These are both just two iframes being pulled in this embedded application, but you can create this very much custom experience for your users. And you don't need to worry about building out the metrics, building out, you know, the data analysis. That's where you can pull in a tool like Looker. It'll be writing all those SQL queries for you. You can leverage the API to pull the results from Looker, so you don't need to, you know, whoever your front end developer is doesn't need to be a data analyst at the same time. And it can really just speed things up and make things, you know, much easier in your, you know, embedded application workflow. This is, yeah, the shiny version of like what an application could look like. Again, art of the possible. But the nice thing is, again, here, if I wanted to, you can even give your users the ability to, again, explore that environment, ask net new questions. This is, again, going to look very similar to what we were just looking at. Giant photo of Brooke Lopez right there. But yeah, those were the main things I wanted to cover in this sort of environment, just to kind of, again, show you what is potentially possible with a tool like Looker. It's very much a what's the word? You know, you'll build on top of yourself, I guess. Kind of jumping off what John had said. A lot of people will start small, and as they see the potential, and as they begin to see, iterative process. That's the word I was looking for, Mark. It's very much an iterative process where you can start to build things out and then build on top of that. But those were the big things that I wanted to go over. I wanted to see if there are any questions. I'm not sure if I missed anything in the chat, Mark, if you want to take a look for me. Anything else you wanted to see, or just anything, again, that I might be able to answer in regards to this Warriors demo. Okay, I guess the one final thing that's nice, I'm on a desktop computer, but this is meant for like a tablet, which is nice because you can still interact with it. It's supposed to be kind of, you know, clicked with a finger, and I just get to drag around here with my mouse, but something also to keep in mind. Yeah, that's everything I had on my end.
No questions that you missed, Matthew, but if anybody else has them, now's the time. We'd love to field them.
Awesome. Yeah, great question. In regards to timeline for a project like this, so, you know, for like a full scale, like embedded implementation, you know, custom, like if you were to wanted to build out this sort of demo, the biggest thing to keep in mind, and the one thing that we always mention is it depends on how the data looks like, right? That's the most frustrating answer. But if your data is not clean, if you don't have the data prepared, right, that's going to be a lot of times going to be spent building that out. In regards to the front end, a lot of times, you know, and I may be speaking out of turn, but that's like the easier aspect of building out the application, right? In regards to actual timelines, I mean, I don't want to give, you know, an actual time frame just because it can be on, you know, a case by case basis. And I'm not the one actually building out the front end application. It depends on how many developers you're working on it also.
John, do you have any additional insight there, just given the range of Looker customers that you've helped get started with embedded analytics?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I like to think of it as your ability, like the ability to embed an iframe is a couple days of work for a developer. The work to set up the data model and the visualization, to get the data right, like to Matt's point, like that really depends on the state of data kind of coming in. Writing LookML is relatively straightforward, so it can be very fast. Most customers, though, have a bunch of work to get their data ready for that type of workload. The JavaScript events, I think that's, you can think of that as days to a week of work. Like, it's not terribly complicated, but you've got to understand the events that are being sent, handle them, and send them back in. Building a fully custom front end on the API, all over the board, from days, weeks to months. I think what you're seeing today, I think that was probably weeks of work, given the complexity of the layouts and the interactivity there. But I mean, that's more of a front end problem than it is a Looker or BI challenge. That's just, how long does it take a front end developer to build that? The other thing that was in there that I just do want to call out too is, from a visualization perspective, Looker allows you to bring your own. So you can actually build JavaScript visualizations out of the D3 library as an example, and add that to your Looker instance, and they will display as native viz. So when we were showing that kind of side by side, and that was actually a Looker dashboard, but you saw the basketball court, that's actually a visualization that's been built and added to Looker's library for that specific instance, and then rendered as part of the dashboard. And that's actually where I see a lot of customers take advantage of not actually building off of the API, but building reusable visualizations that are specific to their data or their industry. I can jump on a couple of those questions. With the purchase of Looker, you're getting the web server that presents the iframes you're all demoing. On the embed license version, yes, that is all included. So the actual rendering server is all part of the Looker platform. Pagination is not currently out of the box. I believe it's on the roadmap. You can represent up to 5,000 rows of data natively, which generally solves most of the use cases, particularly going with the drill across on a specific value. Usually is more of a solve from a usable perspective, in my opinion, than you could paginate through thousands of rows of data. You can also download all the data. So it offers download all results or download a specific set of results up to a row limit, depending on what you want to set on the user side. Key differentiators. I mean, I can give my 2 cents on that. So my background is product management, building data products for a variety of customers. I've embedded Looker as a customer, and then I've worked on 200 of probably our 1,000 implementations. I think the semantic layer and the printing straight SQL, so it's 100% transparent exactly what's happening. That's very friendly for a developer BI analyst. I think it's 1, 2, that derived table, or the ability to really do some level of transformation and restructuring in tool in warehouse without having to bring that out into another transformation layer or pipeline, is very powerful for analysts. The embedding is table stakes now for, from a Tableau or Power BI perspective, but in my opinion, still today, no one else gives you the API coverage. So the ability to build that NBA experience, or like these differentiated experiences all off the governed layer for front page analytics, but then, the long tail of reporting through an iframe, like that breadth of options supported from a technical perspective, I think is a big differentiator of Looker. But that's just from a product consulting side. I don't know, Mark, if there's other things you'd want to highlight.
I think you hit the nail on the head, but yeah, I mean, I would say scalability, governance, self-service, and the ability to take action on the data have been what I've seen as differentiators. Any more questions, guys? Great. I can kick it back to Andrew and the Wursta team here, just to wrap this up, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you all for like taking the time to walk through that. It was very insightful. With that being said, we will be in touch sometime this week with a recording and follow up post webinar. But yeah, thank you again, Mark, John, Tristan, and Matthew for the liquor instant for us.
Of course. And to you as well. And thanks to everybody for attending.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, everyone. See you guys.